Sure.
Mate, did I set this up or did I set this up? Because sadly, I was wrong that I at least gave FlyQuest the credit they beat Golden Guardians. But I was right inadvertently. What a dog shit final. Like, what's the point? Like, this just sucks. Like, bro, the real problem with this is we can't even get to the fact. Like, we have to focus on FlyQuest first because, like, even if they'd lost in the finals, Monty, that still sort of would be okay because you get the MSI spot. It's your first split. You can even use the angle of like, we never sorted out the Winsome Elliott angle. There's a whole bunch of angles you could have gone with. The problem is finishing third into this Golden Guardian. Like, I'm sorry, this split was a failure if you FlyQuest. If you look at the expectations, who you had, how it started, this is just a failure of a split. It's just very sad ending. So underwhelming.
Yeah. I think that it's certainly fair to say that FlyQuest was disrupted by the fact that they wanted to have Isla playing as support. His visa took forever, so by the time he got there, it was very difficult to develop him. Also, Isla just played really fucking badly.
He had some very bad games, of course, yes.
Really badly. So perhaps, they were holding out for him, and then he wasn't the support that they wanted, so obviously, the very last weekend, they put Winsome in a tough position, who probably hadn't been scrimming with the main roster. He comes in and at least goes 5 games with the Golden Guardians, but that is clearly it's a huge rough point for FlyQuest. But also at the same time, M&S came in halfway through the split, and I'm not going to pretend M&S is some sort of world beater. He had his own fair share of int games, and I don't think performed particularly well in the finals. But at the same time, C9 was still able to overcome that. And you would expect a coach like Song, who is literally the reigning world champion coach, to be able to fix some of these issues within this roster. Like, isn't that what Song does? Right?
Yeah.
He was able to cobble together strategies to win the world championship with an insane underdog team. And yes, the meta was very good for DRX, but you can't pull that off without some good coaching. Like, that's impossible. So I think he deserves a lot of credit for that, but you would expect him to be able to do more, because I think the problem with FlyQuest is that they never really figured out how to play together. Like, how do you go through this entire split not knowing how to play together? And it's just the way that they lost too. It really wasn't even on Winsome. Like, I don't think Winsome he was okay, but Spica obviously had a very bad series.
Yep,
Vikla struggled a lot of the time. They weren't playing around Prince particularly well. And it feels like FlyQuest just doesn't know their win conditions. And even the execution, it's like the ideas are just done so badly. So just to talk about kind of the disappointment, particularly in the last 2 games, they were dominating. You love to see like the Lucian Nami duo from FlyQuest doing well. I was like, oh, they got this in the bag, 3-1 FlyQuest, like, let's go. Then you see them come in and they just like, there's no communication going on in this team. Vikla's playing Sylas. He steals Malphite ultimate. He tries to ult a Xayah that has Xayah ult up. It's like, don't do that. Use it for peel. Like, the way that this should be played is that if you know that Xayah ult is up, don't try and ult the Xayah. Wait till they engage and then counter engage with a Malphite ult onto Sylas to protect Prince.
Don't you find that so weird, Monty, that sometimes in League they miss, like if people don't know, I'm going to use a reference that you'll have to know another game, but like the entire meta in Overwatch League at one point in time was based around when the fucking Genji, the ninja champion, did the Dragon Blade ultimate. Like, that literally was what the whole fight was about. You had to wait out the timing of it, right? I agree with you, Monty. When you have like obvious ones like that, it's amazing when people don't make that. Like that should be the mantra in the back of your brain the whole time you're playing that sequence. Like, wait for the Xayah ult, wait for that. It should be doing that the whole time. That's essentially the trigger that you're going to go on.
Or wait for the Malphite to ult you and for them to all in and then counter ult the Malphite. Like, I just but it's even worse than that, Thorin. So Vikla goes in, then Impact Cassante ults River Elise into his own team, clusters them, and then they get Malphite Rakan ulted. So they get Malphite ulted, knocked up by Rakan, then Rakan ulted, and they just cluster up and get womboed into oblivion, and the game just ends at 31 minutes because they all die and there's a wave in mid lane. Like, I mean, count the reasons why this was bad. Like, they were able to end at 31 minutes, so the wave states were obviously very good for Golden Guardians just to be able to, shove the dagger up mid lane. But also, like, why were they team fighting in this way? when they knew their win conditions and had a massive lead. It was cocky. It was terrible. But it's like, come on, man. Malphite is one of those binary champions in all of League of Legends. You cannot lose like this. That's illegal.
Dude, I always think when they have a scenario like that, where, as you say, it's not like there's a massive amount of nuance. He either hits what he's going to hit or just do nothing. I always think of that old DDK line he used to say in CSGO, because I always thought what a great way to frame it as a color commentator. He would always say there are moments in the game where you have to pause and ask yourself, like, essentially, what is like the best thing that I could do for my opponent right now? So essentially, if you were playing against a Malphite, exactly, you've just done it. That's his dream, is for you to let him do that.
It was actually the Malphite Rakan dream play.
It's like a wet dream play, isn't it?
And I was just like, I can't believe that this happened. I cannot believe it. Yeah. There's just so much threat too, because if the Xayah gets a couple feathers down, then you could actually just root a bunch of people too. Doesn't matter if you caught River out, because he's fucking Elise in a team fight. Like the best thing that could happen is you take River into the center of that just as a distraction, right? And then you get to the final game of this series, and they play in a way that is very reminiscent of T1 with Elise, as in they want to do an early level 3 dive. And what I loved about this, I was very excited because it was a set play, right? And it's not only a set play with Elise where you force the vertical jungling early, but they have the Scion in the top lane. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like, they're actually combining 2 separate set plays right now, which is like, we're going to accelerate, we're going to do a dive or get some camps with Scion in the jungle early and then TP back into the top lane to catch the wave, right? To catch the wave that crashes into the turret. So it's not going to be, Sion's not going to be too far behind. And we're combining this with a really fast turret dive in the bot lane. But then they apparently just don't know how to execute this, because Prince and Winsome fuck up the wave. They're not zoning Stixxay and Huhi off the wave. So the wave gets pruned like really early on. They don't have enough minions to push it in. They fuck up the timing so that when Spica's level 3, they can't immediately dive. Like, the wave should be under the turret at that time so you can affect the dive. They have to wait for the next wave. What does this allow River to do? Well, now River has time to get cross map, to get under the turret. Golden Guardians has more time to discuss what they're going to do. They TP a Lysandra into that bot lane, and they're able to stop the dive. Meanwhile, because it goes so fucking badly, Licorice gets a massive lead in the top side by pushing the wave into the turret and denying some CS. And the whole point of this play is you want to accelerate your bot lane, because you know that Licorice is going to get some advantage on the Fiora. So the idea here is, okay, we don't care about the Fiora. The Fiora can get maybe a little bit strong, because we are going to dominate the bot side, start to stack Drakes, and force the Fiora to fight against us in a 5v5 for like soul point or soul, like 22 minutes into the game. Okay. So the concept is good, but the execution is so bad that it made my soul scream. I was watching this and I was like, Jesus Christ. Like, I love this idea, but it looked like they hadn't practiced. They fucked it up. They gave up first blood to the bot. So they basically just gave them themselves disadvantages in both side lanes. And it was just extraordinary. And on top of that, like, Spica then screws up his flash. He should have either not flashed or waited to see if he could get to the wall. Flashes before he gets to the wall, has nothing to repel to. It was just a complete train wreck. And yeah, Golden Guardians played the counter well, but it's not super hard to do that. You know what they're going to do. You have to hit the timing if you're FlyQuest. The timing is everything, and they missed the timing. I mean, what a way to lose.
Oh no, it was just depressing all the way through. Like the problem with that one is, on the one hand, yeah, congrats to Golden Guardians, who overperformed, but you shouldn't even have been in a position to do that. Like, FlyQuest, their own fate was in their hand, Monte. They're the ones who threw it away. Who are you going to blame?
They had game 4 in the bag. They had a really good plan for game 5, and they themselves screwed up the execution both times, which is why I don't think it's necessarily that fair to be critical of Song, because you can see that he was putting them in winning positions, and it was the players who were fucking it up.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.